You found the #1 internet site for irreverent, cool, and entertaining talk programming. It's LA Talk Radio. We say what we want.
Now, broadcasting
from the City of Angels, Los Angeles.
Sheena Metal.
You're listening to the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal, only on LA Talk Radio.
That's right, it's the Sheena Metal Experience right here in LA Talk Radio. For more info on the show, latalkradio.com, SheenaMetalExperience.com. Don't forget to email me and let me know what you think of the show. And one of my favorite things coming up that I am doing in the next couple of months is moderating the Q&As for the Rise and Shine USA convention with the amazing cast of Queer as Folk. And it's kind of an interesting story how Queer as Folk just sort of fell into my life, first through interviewing Scott Lowell, and then through interviewing Gale Harold, and then Scott bringing back most of the cast for a reunion in 2011, which then led to me having Michelle Clooney on the show so many times and Scott more on the show. And then as this convention was coming up, I was fortunate enough to meet my next guest all this hour who's returning to the show, who was a big part of the final season of Queer as Folk, and who will also be at the Rise and Shine convention. The amazing Ryan Scott Greene joins me again. Ryan, welcome back on the show.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk for a minute about Queer as Folk. I know I wanted to ask you this. Who of the people that we know and love from the show did you have scenes with in the final season when you did it was 6 or 7 episodes?
It literally boiled down to just Gale.
Your scenes were just with Gale?
Unless we were in the Babylon set or the Woody set, in a bar scene where some of the other characters may have been walking
Scott
around.
Was there, and Peter,
there was
and
a couple
Hal.
here. Yeah.
Sure.
But in terms of dialogue, conversation, a little one-on-one, all Gale.
Wow. But he's an amazing actor, though.
Absolutely.
He is an amazing actor, and I don't know that I've ever said this to him, but maybe I should next time he's here. And I don't even know if I've ever said this about him, so this may be the first time. But, I mean, obviously he's beautiful, and we all love beautiful. We're humans. But even if he were not an attractive man, I think people would have still loved him as much as they do, because he, first of all, is that good of an actor. And secondly, some actors have an ability to just sort of effuse this vulnerability at you. And even though he was playing this real tough character, was kind of an a-hole a lot of the time, there was such a softness and a gentleness coming out of him that I think comes from Gale. And some actors have an ability to let that part of them out in characters, even if it's a character that shouldn't even have that. Yeah. You still feel that.
Yep.
And I think that that's why he's been as popular on that show. It's just because he's such a great actor.
It's a huge part of it. I mean, I got so lucky in a lot of ways with this show, and one of those ways being, with the fact that I got to work with Gale as much as I did.
Right.
And I knew, from watching the show prior to getting the job, and then getting the job, and kind of doing my research, and then being on the set. But I remember watching during the final season after we'd wrapped and I'd gone on my way and the episodes were airing. There was a scene where he and Randy are on the side of the road just talking, and they kind of separate in a not an angry way, but it's a more melancholy, downtrodden scene, and the character Brian plays it very snarky and kind of I don't care, and okay, that's how it is, then fine, no big deal, no skin off my back. And Randy's character turns and walks away, Justin, and they leave Brian on the sidewalk for, to me, it felt like 2 minutes. It wasn't. It probably was no more than 20 seconds. But they just left him there with his thoughts and his emotions and everything that was going on for him. And it blew my mind how much I knew about what he was going through.
Yeah.
He tried to hold it together. He got, lack of a better word, sad, and then he tried to build himself back up, and then he realized how painful it really was, and he took, at least me, all through that in a matter of 20 seconds. And it didn't say a word, didn't have to. He just kept looking out at the path that Justin had taken, and he gave us everything that was going through his brain. And it was at that point that I was like, that's the talent. You don't have to say a word.
Yeah. Just an amazing actor.
Yeah.
And wonderful on Secret Circle. I mean, just wonderful on everything that he does. I'm in such awe of his talent and of actors that can do that. I think that not a lot of actors are amazing, but they can't do that.
Yeah.
What my mom used to call pathos. Okay, so then here's the question that is winning a couple of tickets to the convention, which I love.
Awesome.
Okay, so the question is, what was it like to play the villain between such an iconic couple? Which I think is such an interesting question because I don't know that I thought of him as a villain.
Well,
did you when you were playing him?
No, I didn't. He wasn't a villain. He did. See, okay, I'll have to pull this apart a little bit. I don't feel like I was between such a powerful couple. I had nothing to do with in my opinion, the relationship between Brian and Justin.
And I agree. And they were already broken up
yes.
for the most part before your character appeared.
Right. Now, there was the element of there was a representation that I had that I think was a big part of the Brian character not wanting to go the route of fully monogamous and be with Justin the whole time. I represented kind of a threat to that element of the lifestyle, and so if the Justin character was hoping that one day this would happen and they would run off into the sunset and everything would be great, my being there soured that a little bit, I think, possibly for the Brian character because I was representing his demise in a certain world. So and maybe in that regard there was some tension between the two. But I didn't think of it as more so much as a villain. I thought of it more of kind of a unwanted changing of the guard.
Okay. Which happens.
Which does happen. I mean, you have to, for better or worse, there are things that have to change. I mean, to remain the same forever is you can't. Things are going to change around you, and eventually things will have to they'll either fall apart or they'll just change so much around you that you can't deal. And I think in the final moment that you end up seeing me after all was said and done with the editing and the production, episode 8, I'm going to take a guess, of 5th season. Brian has kicked me out, 86'd me from Babylon, and we have the moment in his apartment, and I end up back in the bar, and he sees me on the dance floor, and Scott's character Ted says, I'll have him thrown out, and Brian stops him and says, you know what? Don't bother. No matter what you do, you can. I forget his exact words, but you can close the windows, you can lock the doors, you can
right.
you can bar them from coming in, but no matter what, eventually they will come in.
Right.
And there's a little bit of a stare off and a standoff, and I'm not going to speak for him, but there was this kind of understanding. Okay, this is what's happening, and I'm going to roll with it and grow as I need to. So I don't know if that answers the question.
It's fantastic. Totally answers the question. It's the Sheena Metal Experience on LA Talk Radio, and you know what we do here, people. Every Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Time, we rip the veil off the human sideshow and expose the creatures I like to call big old Homo sapiens at their most bizarre and always at their most beautiful. And it's true every day on the show. It may be my show. It is the Sheena Metal Experience, after all. Doesn't mean it's not always and forever, undoubtedly and indubitably, and you know what I'm going to say, people. Maybe my show, but it's most definitely your experience. Thanks for listening. Have a great night. Happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you all on Monday right here on LA Talk Radio.